have held off pledge of allegiance until now, so everyone will please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You are good. You don't have to wait for me.
I was just thinking really
Oh,
well.
okay. No, you're up first. So.
Good evening, everyone. This is the first of two of our annual park results presentations. The first is our initial data results that come out, and the second part will not be presented until January or February when we get the results in comparison to other schools around the state and the specific subgroups like special education and so forth. So we'll get more information once the SGP data comes out in January. This first slide has a lot of information, and you may want to go back and look at the data, and it tracks the data from the last 3 years since the park has been implemented. It goes from 2015, 16, and 17, and on one slide I put all of the data from 3rd grade through 8th grade so that you can see it across from left to right how we have been improving, and you can also look at it diagonally if you want to look at a specific cohort, how a 3rd grade group did in 2016 to how they did in 2017. Notably, you should look at the far right column. In red, you will notice the numbers that are combined for students who were the lowest of proficiency. So if they scored a 1 or a 2, those are combined, and the difference between the initial year in 2015 to 2017. What you want to see is negative numbers. You want to see those numbers coming down because that is those are how many students, the difference between 2017 that were not proficient, the farthest from proficiency. The farthest right column are the students, the increase or decrease in the number of students who were proficient. So scored either a 4 or a 5. And you want to see all positive numbers in this category. So if you look in red, we have all negatives, and that's exactly the direction we want to be going. We want fewer students to be not proficient, and we want more students to be proficient. So we are moving in the right direction. Here is the same slide, but for math. So a few things are notable. So you'll be able to go back and look at the actual details for either your students' grade or just want to see how it's trending. But a few things to know. If you look down at our 8th grade, this is comparing 2015 to 2017. Our program in 2015 did not have full cohorts of our high school programs of Algebra 1 and Geometry. So those students in 2015, many of those students took the 8th grade part, but those students who are now in our our Honors Algebra 1 and our Honors Geometry do not take the 8th grade part. So it's a different test. So there's an 8th grade part test, there's an Algebra 1 test, and a geometry test that our students would be taking in the 8th grade. So the numbers that are in the red under proficiency are accurate because the students are likely the same students that would have fallen into the category of 1s or 2s, depending on no matter what test they took. And they would still likely have been taking the 8th grade test. The 4s and 5s do differ. Because again, the students that it shows that we had a decrease from 2015 to 2017, but we're not comparing apples to apples there because we had different students in each of those groupings. So it's not really a comparison. So in reality, our numbers did not go down in that category, so we really cannot look at that as useful data at this time. In comparison to how the state was trending, what again we want to see is our change in percentage of students that are getting 1s and 2s, that's the lowest proficiency. We want all of those percentages to go down. This slide compares how our students in our grades 3 through 8 in Denville did compared to the state. So like for grade 3, we went down by 6%, and that's great. We want our lower proficiencies to go down, and the state had 5.8. Grade 4 went down 2%, the state also went down very similar with 0.8. So if you you look at the numbers, they're fairly close. In the proficiency, the numbers going up, we want again to be positive. So we want all the arrows to be going upward. And in this case, in language arts, all the numbers are going upward. So for lower proficiency, all the arrows should be going down, which they are. And for our percentage of 4s and 5s, we want them going up. For math, it's a similar trend, although we do see some anomalies. There are a few areas, especially in that 8th grade that I mentioned, where the arrows are going in not the direction we want them to go, where students' proficiency went down. But again, note that's because we're not comparing. In 2017 and 2015, we're not comparing the same thing. If we were to compare 17 to 18, as we will next year, that's our full year. This year's our full year, our second full year of having those cohorts, so we'll actually have data that is comparable. So now let's look at some actual numbers. So I just broke out so you can look at 3rd grade to 3rd grade from 2016 to 2017. So what we want to see is our lower percentages in our 1s and 2s moving up to a level 3 is approaching proficiency. We would want to see our most as 4s and 5s exceeding proficiency. You can look at what our percentage was overall in the 3rd grade. So in 2016, it was 67%. The same 3rd grade teachers would be 70% this year, 2017. So if you look at it in that direction, it gives you information about how our teachers are performing, how are we doing with training, are we moving in the correct direction? We should see that going up. If you want to compare cohorts, so how did the 3rd graders do in 2016, and then as 4th graders, how did they perform in 2017? So that is what the arrow represents. So the same group of kids in 2016 had 67% proficient, and then in 2017 were 85% proficient. So that's significant growth. That's not just a percent, but that's that cohort of students that once they moved to the next grade had significant growth. That's exactly what we want to see. But you can also look again year over year. So 4th grade, the first group, and again it measures more about teachers and presentation or training and understanding of the material at 81%, and the next year as 4th grade teachers they were 85. So in that case, both cases they're moving in the right direction. In 5th grade, proficient was 83%, in 2017 we're at 81%. So that's not a large significant number of a difference, but you have to again look at the cohort. So those students as 4th graders were 81%, and then as 5th graders they were still 81%. So we didn't see a large growth, but we didn't see recession either. Same data, but for grades 6 through 8. And when the arrow is noting, again, our 6th grade students in language arts, that cohort was 71% proficient in 2016. The same group of kids in 2017 at the end of 7th grade, 85% were proficient. So again, all of the students are taking the same assessment. No students are broken out, and they are going in the correct direction, moving up. For our math data is lower than our language arts data. We're seeing that trend across the state, but as I've discussed with some of the board members, why are we seeing that? And I do think that we have a better understanding of what the expectation is for language arts as far as the type of writing and the type of comprehension that students need to have. I think it was more eye-opening how different the rigor is for math, that students could not rely on just computation skills, procedural skills. They really had to have conceptual understanding to be successful, and that is really where we're working. So our numbers, our biggest success would be in our 5th grade, but last year we were at 59% proficient, which is low, and this year it was a significant improvement at 72%. So the 5th grade teachers really put a lot of effort into raising the rigor at the 5th grade level, as well as training with the coach, and we saw great results. But you can see that the overall numbers are lower than we would like and really where we need to be. We need to be looking at upper 70s and 80s. Following the same trend, but grade 6, so in 2016 we were at 58%, but then as 7th graders we were at 50%. So we need to talk about what's going on with those numbers. We do have to look that we are pulling out some students for Algebra 1 and then as 8th graders for geometry. I think these similar trends were always, they always existed, but that they weren't really illuminated because we had all of the students grouped heterogeneously. So because of that, you really could not see as clearly how well different groups of students were performing. Once we have different levels of different courses, you can really identify where our weaknesses are as a district, the types of students and the numbers of students that we need to be hitting. So if you look here, this is a prime example. So our 8th grade, I told you that there are 3 tests that happen in 8th grade. They're either taking the 8th grade core part. That is 8th grade level work. It is what the expectation is for any 8th grader in the state, any 8th grader in any of the Park states, what that expectation is. But they also could be taking a high school Algebra 1 along with high schoolers around the country, or they could be taking geometry tests with high schoolers around the country. So if we break those students out, yes, our numbers look significantly lower than they did 7 years ago in the NJASC when we did not have any students taking any algebra or geometry courses at all. But those students still existed. I just don't think that we really noticed that how are our 8th grade students who are on grade level, who should be on grade level, who are not coming to us with a notable disability or difficulty, given 8th grade materials with an 8th grade teacher, they should be able to take an 8th grade test and come out and be proficient. Because that isn't an expectation that should be higher than what it is. But if you look back at what really is happening, we start back in 3rd grade, all of those percentages where we were at 70%, there's 30% that weren't proficient. And then the next year we have those, that's growing and growing until we get to 8th grade, and they've had to catch up from the year before and try to get ahead. So that really steamrolls, and by the time they get to 8th grade, we only have 41% of our 8th grade students who should be able to perform on 8th grade level proficient. And I and the administrative team, as soon as we got these, saw a serious issue with this, that we have to make our core math program stronger. It needs to be our focus this year, because those students, their next stop in math is Algebra 1. So leaving 8th grade, if we only have 41% proficients, going on to high school Algebra 1, we're really doing them a disservice leaving here not proficient, at least at the 8th grade level. Because that really is expectation. They have to pass that class to graduate. So our goal this year is really focused on math in all of the grades, and especially the middle school. And so far we have really worked on personnel and training. We have new books, we have new levels, and we're working with the math coach. So we have quite a plan in place to move these students. But now we really know where those students are. And it is one strong benefit for making the decision to go to the different levels. Because now we can really see that, yes, let's celebrate. Look at our algebra, 99% last year, 93, and that's with 70 kids taking Algebra 1. And then with geometry, we had a full cohort of 29 kids. They all passed the high school geometry test. Those are things to celebrate. So that large group of kids, and that represents probably a third of our students, are successful and are passing and excelling in the high school courses. We should not stop them from doing that. We probably were holding them back in the past, and now they're really moving forward. And now we need to focus on our core math and our advanced classes. Questions? Yes.
So would it be a big deal to maybe put the numbers, because now that you're breaking them out, like the number of students that fall into the categories would probably help put the scope, I can see a lot of questions coming around this, but you're saying 41% of what's left of the non-honors group, and maybe, and it would show that the difference between where we were and where we are now, like that gap, that difference in number, I think it might help explain to people what's going on with the percentage.
Sure. I could definitely do that.
It's like the basic
Right.
pie.
Look, that's it, and
You
that's
want
it.
the 30-year pie, and now
Right.
it looks horrible, but really it's not. It's just you're focused on what's left.
Right. And we have to take that aside, and that's what we really talk with our staff about. Those students, we have to think of them as taking the high school courses now, and not think of them as, well, if they were back in here, it would make our numbers look better. That may be true, but those students would still be performing the same, right? So we have to think of them as they're in a different course, pathways, and we have to focus on this. But I can definitely put the numbers. About 65% of our kids take the core, because that's all grade level. That's what they should be taking. And I can definitely put the numbers in.
Well, it highlights
Yes.
more opportunity.
You raised your hand, so you go first. Class.
Exactly. Thank you for putting this together. I think a lot of what we talked about, I heard feedback, is that middle student. And I think that's what you're focusing on now. That's what you're seeing as you break out these more advanced classes. As we've got a lot of support on the kids, the students that need a little extra help. And I was actually, as you were going through your presentation until you got to the end, I was going to ask about everything's comparison 1 to 2 and 4 to 5, but what about 3? Are those students staying in 3? They're almost there, but they're not there. So I'd be interested to see kind of, I don't know how we can do that, but can we see where those students that are in the middle, are they moving back and forth? And some of that 1 to 2 and 4 to 5 help to understand that, but it seems like a lot of it was static year to year. And if we're getting those kids that are just almost there but not meeting them, what can we do to help push them over the edge? So, and certainly this shows a little bit of that same statistics where that middle group might need a little extra help.
Definitely, and those students have really been getting the invitations for our Student Success Academies, and I did a breakout of, well, how is this program working to see, are our students moving up levels? And we didn't have a large number of students moving from 3s to 4s, which is what we really were pushing to do. But we did have them moving from just being a 3 to being an upper 3s. We're like, okay, in a year, we're moving up, and we did have a significant number of 1s that went to 3. So we were thrilled with that, but I was first counting, I was like, oh, 3 still, 3 still, 3 still. Then I had to know the actual number to say, you know, is this worth the time, or should we be looking at another method or form of instruction to target that? But I think we still need to look at some other methods as well. And I think having the new books and the rigor, and now we really have to figure out how to get those students that conceptual understanding, because that's really what's lacking in there. And to those watching, the good news is that once we got this data, we were able to play with our numbers. I actually talked to the committee about lowering the core class sizes, and this year we were able to do that. So our core class math classes are the smaller by quite a bit, by a good 8 students than some of the others. So hopefully that will also assist in getting that attention. Yes.
Are you seeing the same pattern for the ELA programs as well? I mean, you showed a few slides, and you mentioned that there wasn't this similar type of scenario playing out, or?
It's not. We have, originally, when it was NJ Ask, it was always, the math was always higher, and then the language arts was always lower. Because the language arts stayed pretty consistent about having students write at a pretty high level, and so it's always been a state struggle, and I think probably all students struggle. The math was more procedural, so many students could perform and be proficient on the procedures, but when put to either, as a word posed as a word problem or a logic problem, they were not able to actually manipulate the numbers. They could do the multiplication problem, but they couldn't actually do it if it were asked a different way. So I think that has been very eye-opening. We are not seeing those trends in language arts. We've only seen the upward trends. And we put into place, this is our 5th year now, of really concentrated with reading, writing, workshop, as well as word work. A significant amount of time and training has gone into that, and we've seen it. I don't know that all districts will know in January that are seeing the type of growth we've seen in language arts. I mean, when we were doing comparisons last year with our cohorts, we were improving we went up 20%, or they were going up 4%. So we saw that we were actually outpacing our peer schools. Math, I think we're probably about even. I think this is not just a Denville issue, but I can see the issue, and Denville can fix it. I mean, we can fix it up for our students.
Sandy, based on what you're doing now and these numbers, do you have an idea in your mind, and again, this could be rough, but where you'd like to see these numbers next year. What would be your goal? What would you consider success? What would you consider, what do you think?
Well, I would like to see at least a 10% increase in each of them. I think nothing less than the 70s, because we do have some groups that are still in the low 60s. And those should be, the 70s should be up to the 80s. I mean, I think that we really need to be targeting in the 80s. Even if it's a low 80s at this point. I mean, because at this, last year we moved middle school language arts at like 86%. So we moved that a lot. And originally, I think, in NJ Ask era, it was like 60%.
We discussed in committee whether the numbers on, I think it was page 4 and 5 here, the percentage changes from 2015 to 2017. We discussed where, since there's several, a lot of the numbers are, some of the numbers are very small, like 1, 2, 3%. We discussed whether or not those were statistically significant, like are we just seeing noise, random noise in the data, or are we actually seeing like an actual trend? Were you able to unearth anything?
I think at 2%, if within 2%, I would think there's a margin of error that in any either go up 2% or go down 2%. I think that's kind of the margin you could really play with and say that on any given day it may perform, a student may perform differently. But as long as we're continuing to move with the positive and we look at the cohort to see that they're moving in the positive, I think that at least you're trending upward. When you see numbers like 10% higher, those are significant. Because that's just, that's, out of 200 kids, you're talking about 20 students that moved from one category to the next. I mean, that's significant. 2 students, 4 students, probably not as much. But I think 20, and some of these are even higher, like 15% increases. So you're talking about, it's like 30 or more kids.
Cindy, when we talked in committee, you said that you had kind of anticipated this with the math scores, and then you laid out for us in a list all the things that you and the administrative team had put together to improve that this year. And I think you've touched on all of them in the presentation, but would you mind just reviewing them collectively?
Sure.
So that
we anticipated that about mid-year we started seeing, we did have some turnover with personnel, even mid-year, and we really needed to look at our certification to see that we are placing our strongest math teachers that we can find, especially at that 8th grade level, because we're preparing them for Algebra 1. So we need high school teachers to do that. So we already were looking at that as personnel. We were also looking at, for the 6th grade, at a more rigorous textbook that really focused on, it's called Big Ideas Math, it's really focused on the word problem, really understanding the conceptual over the procedural. That's going to roll up. So 7th grade does not have that this year, or 8th, but it's going to roll up next year to possibly the 7th and 8th. We also looked at how we were using our coach, and again, our class sizes, but we didn't anticipate that we would be able to lower them until the summer, and we luckily were able to do that before school started. But with our coach, really focusing on, for example, instead of doing like, let's put up 10 problems from the night before and have kids come up and do the homework, which is probably what we all did. Everybody came up and did a problem on the board, and that was like correcting the homework. Instead, starting with more of an out-of-the-box math problem, bigger idea math problem. How do we break this down? And really going through steps of how to break it down, working collaboratively in groups, and also getting them more excited about math. How do you use math in the real world, as opposed to looking at our textbook. Our 7th and 8th grade textbooks are still more traditional than we would like. So this year we have spoken with them and working with Jen Conforti, our coach, of having them saying, like, this is your resource, but that we're not going to be teaching from the book. We're not going to go chapter by chapter. We actually took whole chapters out that are not, they're not in the standards for that grade level. So we should not be spending time on one that is not a focus unit. We really need to do what's foundational for the next grade. And getting them to, we have a couple websites that we're using to select those more interesting and more thought-provoking problems. Start the day with them, and then start going through some of the background once they understand the concept. So even not using that as the book as the be-all, we need to move away from that. So there's some of the things we've already done starting May. Right,
All right,
thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thanks, Sandy. Thank you for that very excellent presentation. That brings us to Mr. Forte. Here's your comments.
Okay, so we have on the agenda, we have a proposed date of October 3rd to do a presentation at Town Hall with our strategic plan, facilities, and demographics. We had back-to-school nights at Riverview and Valley View last week. At Riverview, we had our ribbon cutting for the new library. It was well attended. And at Valley View, we handed out the Chromebooks to about 420 kids in grades 6 and 7. And Lakeview's back-to-school night is tomorrow night. Just for anybody's information, Morris Knowles High School's back-to-school night is September 28th and October 4th. We had some events too. I appreciate some of you coming to the convocation. I thought it went really well. I think the speaker was excellent. And I think the staff and everybody that was in attendance really benefited from it. On October 19th, we had Julia Cook at Lakeview at 6:30 p.m. That would be for all parents. We will be offering a child care program through the YMCA for that evening. On November 15th, Ryan's story will be at Valley View at 7 p.m. These postcards are here that you were given have been passed out at back-to-school night to every person in attendance. And we also dropped them off at St. Mary's, Denville Police Department, and Denville Town Hall. I did include something to you in my board report this week, and I thought it was worthy of mention again. We have over 1,000 downloads of our app. We reached our goal about a month and a half prior to what I was hoping for November 1st to have 1,000 downloads. We had 1,027 as of Friday. So that campaign seems to be working, and I think now that having 1,000 downloads, that the app is actually relevant. That concludes my report for today.
Thank you very much. Dr. Combs, back to you. Anything else?
Sure. Just to note, the parents, the park scores that we just discussed were mailed out, the individual progress reports were mailed out on September 13th. So if you are not seeing them within the week, then please call your principal to make sure that you get your copy. Also, the testing calendar has been determined for this school year, our PERC scores as well, our PERC testing dates as well as the COGATs and so forth. And that should be on the website tomorrow. This concludes the Assistant Superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. Members, anything from the District Administrator's office?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, which happens to be precisely 8 o'clock, we'll open up for public discussion. Any comments or questions, anything at all germane to the district, if you'd like to come up and sign in, we'd be happy to hear from you. Pretty good. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public discussion portion at 8:01 p.m. And we'll move on to the rest of our agenda. Okay, we have old business. Mr. Lewis, would you care to take us through our old business segment this evening?
Sure. We have several resolutions on the agenda for tonight. Excuse me. A is to approve the treasurer, school monies, and board secretary report. B is education reports. I don't see anything listed.
It's just a,
Oh, okay, so there are.
it's just a placeholder.
Okay. Okay, and the minutes of the work session, the combined work session, regular meeting, executive session from August 21st of this year to be approved.
I'll second.
Okay, any comments, questions? I have one question, and I may have been wrong in my note-taking. The work session notes from the August 21st, Mrs. Lindsay, were you here at the beginning of that session? Because I didn't have you noted that in the minutes you are. So I just
I thought I was.
I could be wrong. If you were, that's fine. I might not have done it
I've got her down in mine.
now. Okay. Then I believe I'm mistaken. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, my son started driving, so I started getting
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Anyone else on these items? All good? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. Okay, moving on to all the new business under personnel. If there are no objections, I would like to move under personnel items 1 through 17. And I will draw your attention to the addendum we received. We are adding under item 1, items BB, CC, and DD. And under number 2, we are adding items J through Q, and I believe there's a misspelling on number 2J. I have to apologize, I can't read you right. What is that supposed to be?
Laudeati.
These are our usual hires, resignations, substitute lists. This is pretty extensive here, obviously. We also will be talking and approving merit goals for Mr. Forte, for Dr. Cullis, for Damaris, and Thomas D'Angelo, the Transportation Director. We have some transfers in and out of the schools, different positions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And do this, Lindsay. Okay, now let's have at it.
I would like to ask a few questions about the merit goals. There's a couple of them that I have questions about. One of them is the qualitative merit goal for Mr. Thomas D'Angelo. It says review all route and transfinders to determine if routes are running efficiently by routing at a proper load or student capacity. Isn't that what the transportation director is supposed to do? Am I wrong about that? Is there something else? Is that like something we don't do every year anyway?
Mr. D'Angelo is re-evaluating all routes and trying to come up with a way to make it more efficient. Last year, we did align the AM and PM routes to be the same. However, this year, he's trying to combine that with the drivers just to make sure that one bus would make it more efficient in one route to have it back in a more efficient manner than in the past. We're just looking to, again, just to try to save time and at the same time eliminate costs by not hiring a lot of personnel.
Okay, but isn't that what the transportation director is supposed to do anyway? I mean, it's correct me if I'm wrong, but these goals are supposed to be things that are above and beyond their normal job, right? And am I right about that?
True. Yes, you're right.
Okay, so isn't this something the transportation director is supposed to do anyway?
Again, he's just taking what we currently have and trying to come up with a better option, better solution.
Possibly looking at combining routes, eliminating buses if possible. Things like that.
Okay, I don't think I'm expressing my question properly. I understand that he's trying to make it more efficient. But my question is, isn't that the transportation director's normal, regular job? That's not above and beyond what he's supposed to do. I mean, am I misinterpreting the transportation director's job?
Well,
Is the
yes,
transportation
I
director
can understand your
anything?
point. I can understand your point. Makes sense. Problem is, we've never done it, so we're looking to try to do it. Remember when I said, one of the things we've overturned was that we use all our buses to go to Lakeview, all our buses to go to Valley View, and all of them to go to Riverview. But Riverview's half the size of the other two. So he's gonna look to try to combine some of that and eliminate some runs if possible.
Okay, so
Sure.
what you're saying is that, sorry to interrupt, what you're saying is that this previously has not been something the transportation director has done on a regular basis.
Not effectively and well done. So it hasn't been something that we were able to accomplish before.
Okay. And this will be part of his job in the future? Like this is like we're working this into the job, and this year this will be his merit goal, and after that it will be part of the regular job?
I believe, yeah, I get it. It wouldn't be like we would do it again. He's gonna have to obviously do it first, and then always look to revise and do that. He was brought on, to make changes and improve the transportation department. So increasing efficiency and reducing routes if possible would be a big step forward for us.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the way I understood it, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve and Maris, is this is above and beyond because it's kind of the baseline. The first time he's really cleaning it up big, and then they'll go back and, there's always going to be tweaks every year based upon the needs, but it's always just been tweaks and not a bigger kind of, this is like starting from ground up and almost like delete everything out and start from scratch is my understanding. Is kind of what he's
And
doing.
that's exactly right, yes. He has a base that he's starting with, and he's going to try to eliminate stops. Right now, utilizing all the buses for Lake Riverview.
Yeah.
Again, he's trying just to cut fuels, buses, drivers, and freeing them up for either other routes or not using them at all.
Got it.
I also think that with the merit pay, we're not necessarily looking for new job, parts of your job to keep adding to your job description, as much as that what can you do to make a significant impact on the district in a way that you may not, that would be noted. That whether it's saving money or moving a significant number of kids or creating programs for more kids, that wouldn't be in your 7 to 6 day. I think that, because otherwise if we just keep looking for more and more jobs to do, there's going to be too many jobs to do anything well. I think that was sort of the governor's attempt to say, we'd like to acknowledge when you do something exceptional. I think that was where that originally came from. But I know that there's lots of feelings about it. It's difficult for us as well. It's always a little awkward to sit here on the miracle times because you're trying to sell yourself.
I hear what you're saying, and we had a discussion in committee about this. It's just in board member training, and I think we have some leeway with this one, but with the other ones in board member training, we're told we're not supposed to make a miracle. That's something that's part of your regular job. And I hear what you're saying is every year it's something additional, and you now have to add the old goal into your repertoire, but it was over and above, if it truly was over and above your typical job description, it doesn't have to get added in, which is why this one that was brought to attention is unusual because it will be a big undertaking this year because it hasn't been done before, but it will then be part of the regular job, but that's not typically how a merit goal would be. It wouldn't be done this year and then forevermore be yours, otherwise it wasn't really over and above your job.
Well, in a way, it kind of equates to what one of Damaris's goals, I think was last year now, when we switched over to Systems 3000, right?
Okay.
I mean, there was the big project of switching over, right? That was a merit goal. But now there's obviously the ongoing, part of your job, which is keeping that system going. So in a way, it feels a little similar.
Okay, but they were doing the process before that, whether it was filing it in a filing cabinet versus scanning it and shredding it.
We were doing it manually, yes, filing it.
So I understand that it's a big process to switch over, but, and that was worthy of, being over and above that we didn't hire out, we didn't give somebody else a job, but she took it on. But yeah, the fact that it's now part of her day-to-day using that system, the whole system was part of the day-to-day too. That wasn't over and above her job.
Inform.
That's right. That's actually, I think you made my point. That's exactly it.
Right, so I understand
The
this.
project's above and beyond, but not the work that follows.
Right. Right, so I don't look at them as I'm adding more and more to their job description.
No, yeah, I agree with that. You're right. I don't think it's that you're constantly adding these miracles on and expecting that they're going to be now part of the job. I mean, these are one-off items, right?
Although if we go to, the superintendent's, last year I believe he had a Twitter goal, and this year he has a Facebook goal, and I don't expect him to stop tweeting.
No.
I don't exactly like the wording that you're going to create a Facebook page.
Well, do you want to move on? We want to move on to those miracles? Are we okay with this one?
I just don't want, I was not understood. Let me restart. I did not want it to be a constant merit goal every year because it seems to me the transportation, sorry, what's the exact title? The transportation director, that's what they should be doing. And now that I have been told that it's not something that has been done previously on a regular basis, I understand why the first time you're doing it after it hasn't been done for however many years would be a much bigger thing to tackle. But I no longer have a problem with it for this year, but I really don't want to see it again next year. Now that I have said that, can we move, is it okay to move on to the next one that I have questions about? I don't want to cut off anybody's discussion.
You okay? You okay on this one? Move on? Go ahead.
I've got a question about the district Facebook page. We're looking at, I don't remember what the exact amount of money is, but it seems to me that if we're going to put together a Facebook page, shouldn't we have it done? I mean, I don't know if, Steve, if you have any experience in making Facebook pages. I know I certainly don't. But shouldn't we have somebody professional do it if we're going to pay to have it done?
We're going to pay to have it done?
Well, that's what would happen if with a miracle. I mean, we'd be paying Steve to do it.
Wait a minute. You lost me. We're not having somebody professionally create a Facebook page.
Yes, we're having, according to this, Steve is going to do it. And we will be paying him to do so, correct?
Yeah, I may need some help, I may need a consultant to help me with it, because you're right.
No, my point is if we're going to pay someone to do it, shouldn't we pay a professional to do it right, to do it instead of paying someone who...
Well, setting it up is different than maintaining it. So I hadn't planned on using any type of a service to maintain it. I had planned on consulting with somebody on how to start it. If that's what you mean. Like creating it and starting the thing from scratch. I had planned on speaking to some people that I've already spoke to for the last couple of years because it's something we've been tossing around for a while. But when it came to managing it, no, I didn't plan on hiring a firm to manage it. I plan on managing it myself.
Similar to the Twitter.
So, well, the Twitter we did set up in-house, because it's not as involved.
But you can help, and I'm sure you know, but for Dave, who might not be aware, you can link them also, so it's very similar to Twitter that Steve's already managing, that it's a communication tool to the public. It's not,
Okay.
It's not like designing a website.
thank you, it's not as complex, certainly.
It's like sharing your information about the school, just like you guys on Twitter. And pictures, just like I know the school's doing.
Yeah, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but I think the big thing is to make sure that you get the settings right.
Right.
So that's really, and once you get it set, it shouldn't be like a $5,000, $10,000 cost for a consultant to come in and design something or whatever. But you're right, I think that that goal, so I'm pretty passionate about this one because I think that there is a large percentage, and I don't know if I can quantitatively put a percentage on it, but I can tell you that there's a large percentage of people that rely on Facebook for every single information piece. And those people that rely on it for everything. And they'll go on there and ask a lot of questions. Some of them that are appropriately responded to by somebody who within 3 minutes seems to be ready to answer the question, and that's fine. What time is pickup? Here's the link on how to find pickup. So Steve doesn't have to respond to that stuff, but there's some misinformation that's put out there sometimes, or information is just older or whatever it might be. So certainly us being on there, us as a district, and being able to control the conversation. It's either we control the conversation or the conversation controls us. And right now on Facebook, I think the conversation is controlling us, where in a lot of other mediums, we are controlling the conversation and getting our information out there. And there's stuff that we want to proactively bring up. So, you know, I lost my card, here it is. But these types of things are being advertised in some places on Facebook, but I'd love to see us as a district proactively being out there and pushing things like that, because you'll get people to say, well, I don't know what they're doing, you know, what about all this bullying stuff that's going on, it's a big deal, what's happening? And it'd be great for us to keep reminding people that it's out there and we're doing a lot about it. So that's at least my look on it. And it may be a lot of work, because there's a lot out there, but I don't think that Steve needs to respond to every single question 24 hours a day, you know, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But I think the ability to respond to things when there's misinformation out there or proactively putting things out there is important.
Number 3 under quantitative, apply for at least 30,000 in grants. Where are these grants? Where do we get the grant? Where do we normally get grants from? Is this the same thing that we hired the guys, the company a couple of years ago to apply for grants?
Just before meeting?
No, this was since I've been on the board.
Oh, you mean what's that grant called? Someone, something.
I don't think he means Rod grants.
Oh,
E-rate grant.
Yeah.
It can't be any kind of grant that you already get. It's either like either private grants or public grants. It's not like no entitlement grants. Does that make sense? So it can't be like our NCLB grant. It can't be the E-rate grant. It can be any of that stuff.
Okay, so it's not like the grants that we get normally through the state already.
Yeah, no, it can't be that. That's actually,
These are above and beyond.
yeah, it has to be above and beyond something else. Yeah.
Like things that are now available to us through Sustainable New Jersey. Because
Something like
part of
that.
that, you would see that there are opportunities to put together a package.
Okay, can we add in something about at least getting one? I mean, applying is all fine and good, but it doesn't do us a whole lot of good if we apply and we don't get it.
Well, that's,
Am I asking too much there?
Well, that's outside his control.
It's hard, I'm gonna apply for grants, I think we have a shot at getting it, but it's hard to guarantee we're gonna get it because there's several reasons. One of the things is it could be a matching grant, the board could vote no on it. For example, say say I find a grant for $10,000 and says that this is $10,000 to go towards something that we are already doing, and it's important, and the board says, no, I don't want to do $10,000. Well, sometimes that happens.
Even aside from that, it is totally outside of your control. And being a board member who sat on the board when we actually hired a grant writer, I mean, what I learned then is that grant writers who do this profession for a living sort of know the maps, like what you're going to try and figure out, which is ones that we have a shot at. And they also know all the key words to put in the grant that helps you. Because when we hired that grant writer, we got like $150,000 grant, $40,000 grant. And when we did it on our own, I don't know that we ever got even any grants, but you're never going to get them if you don't apply for them. So, but you're going to put your time and effort into applying for grants, we will have a shot that we never had before.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. Under the qualitative grants, number one, I thought we discussed I thought we basically figured out what we were going to do for the district facility problems at the last meeting. Is that's coming up for a vote soon?
Hopefully by October we'll be done. But remember, these goals are July 1st is when the new contract year starts. So anything, these are things that we've been working on for years, and they're finally coming through. It's a pretty big undertaking, obviously. So this came through the committee, and the committee agreed that these are all things that have been worked on already, but now they're finally coming through.
Okay.
I think, David, and I was on that committee, so
And so is it.
I think for everybody else too, I think one of the things that we talked about was the fact that as much as we think we're completed with some of these, we find out that they take longer than we expect, like the moving to town hall that we expected to already be in by, that you run into roadblocks and they're not easy. They're not roadblocks like, hey, it'll take another month to get it done, but some of them are back to the drawing board kind of roadblocks. So it's been a long road, and I still think, even as we move forward, I think Steve and I have had some conversations over the last week on things that we've uncovered that long-term, it's still potentially going to be an issue, or things that he has to uncover and find out what may be a solution for a problem we don't have yet, but we may have in the future. So things like that, I think, are my idea, because I think we continue to work on that.
This is a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I got one other question about this. For the quantitative one, who's going to be performing the walkthrough evaluations? I know you do some of them, right, Steve?
So it's the whole administrative team, like Sandy, Grace, me, all the principals, vice principals. We go through, we do our walkthroughs. Each staff member gets at least one walkthrough a month by somebody. And at the end, the data will be compared from the first two months to the last 2 months.
So you do a whole bunch in the first, you do a whole bunch the first 2 months and a whole bunch the last 2 months?
No, we do a whole bunch the whole year. It's that every month, each staff member, we have 200 certificated staff members, gets at least one walkthrough.
And the walkthrough evaluation is you basically,
They have set criteria, and I'm sorry, I misspoke before. Dave and I serve on one committee, the other, but not both. So I was thinking he was at that meeting. And we did discuss that. Did they have a set criteria of what they're looking for before they walk into the room?
It gets recorded, Dave, on something like on our phone.
we have like a
A
form.
template, a
It's a little
form.
form that populates to it. As a matter of fact, I don't control it, Mike Picatoli does for us. So when we walk through, we check the boxes on what we think we saw, and then at the end of the year, we look at the data.
Okay, thank you.
So they're basically going in and collecting evidence. They either see it happening or see it on the walls or no.
Can we go back to the Facebook
Yes.
goal for a minute? And this might be more of a question for the committee than for Steve directly. When the Twitter goal was implemented, there was a number to go along with it. Did the committee discuss something like that?
We did, and we couldn't probably, Steve, I know we talked about it. I don't know if we
Talk about a number.
It's hard to come up with a number that, and part of the reasoning we even talked about the number was, like you talked about tying Twitter and Facebook together. I said, well, because we had talked about a number of posts, and I'm like, well, but if you're already doing it on Twitter, just posting it to Facebook, which some of them make sense to put on both. You know, if there's a large majority that really want to put something there, I think we would be open to it. I just don't know if we had a number. We felt like just getting it set up alone and getting it started was going to be a lot. I don't know, Dino, you were there, right? You and Mariana, so.
No, I mean, yeah, you kind of struggled with the concept of what any kind of meaningful number would be for Facebook. And I don't know, I couldn't really envision one that really didn't matter that much. That seemed to be kind of a consensus.
I'm not worried too much about the end result, it's just what the discussion was.
I did have one question or comment on number 13. So this is something that the mentor-mentee program, this is something that a couple of years ago, we as a board had decided that we were going to pay that fee as opposed to having our brand new teachers have to pay the $550 to the mentor. Is that going well, or any feedback on how that's going? I mean,
So how we have done it is that we offer a mentor program, and they have to participate at the beginning, because that's the evaluation required by the state. They have to go through a thorough training on their evaluation program. After that, it's optional. So what we say, because the state requires them as part of their provisional program, is to pay this $550. It cannot go from hand to hand. It has to go through the district. But we will reimburse them if they stick with the program, and then we rehire them, we will reimburse their time. If they don't go to the classes, then we don't reimburse them. But it's an incentive that we don't pay them to attend, but that they can continue to learn more and do professional development outside of school. So they meet like once a month, but sometimes, some of the months it's twice a month, because it's conferences or about, bigger issues. So that was kind of the incentive to have a 2-year program where they really want to be involved, but they have to just do at least the 1 year. And then some of our employees don't return, and some do. And some do put in for reimbursement, but sure.
so but we as a district are not required to pay that, correct? That's something that we had.
Correct. We decided it is not required. We decided that we would, but that also could be a year-to-year thing that we can talk about if we want to do it differently.
Yeah, no,
But that's why we do it.
I like that we do it, and I know we talked about this only the last couple of years that we brought it up, and I like that we do it. I just want to make sure that it's appreciated. I mean, if it's one of those like, oh, no big deal, I mean, it's not a huge number, but it's certainly something that I think we believe in the program. We think it's important. We don't want our brand new teachers that, are new to the district having to shell out $550 for a training program or a mentor program. It seemed like it was the right thing to do when we talked about it. I just want to make sure it's appreciated by them.
I think so, and I think the fact that you work through it, and then it's like you accomplished a lot this year, and we want to rehire you, and we, it's just kind of a bonus there for doing all of those things. I'm a little hesitant not to have any skin in the game, only because if we just pay it right up at the beginning in September, then you don't kind of, like why go to the meetings, it's already paid for.
Have we talked to the teachers who have not come back and continued on with the program? It's a 2-year program. Some continue for the 2 years, some do not. So what would be the reason that the people drop out after a year? I'm assuming that they would.
If they're still in our district, it tends to be somebody who's already teaching in another district and, had 5 years in another district. So they needed that year to really get familiar with Denville standards and procedures. But after that, they feel confident. The teachers that are brand new tend to come, they don't miss a meeting, because it is a nice collaborative group for them to go to, support group. So they seem to enjoy it. They come each time.
I also see that we have a mentor program coordinator being paid, so that person would oversee, like the supervisor or the manager of the program, make sure it's getting done and following up.
Right, because now with the new requirements, there's just so much logistical things and what has to get done. So they do that, they oversee that piece. The training on the evaluation tool, conferences, how to be successful at managing and working with parents, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'm glad we do it. I think it's a continued investment in our staff, and I'm glad to hear it's going well. Steve, 17, the Walgreens flu vaccine.
Right.
How did that come about?
Our head nurse is Risa Callis. She's the nurse at Riverview. She's also the district head nurse. She's a small segment, but I think it's actually on there tonight. She contacted Walgreens, right, down here, and they were interested in coming. They originally were only going to Riverview, but I told them I wouldn't be okay with just offering it to Riverview staff. It's going to be at Riverview, but it's offered to all staff.
That's great.
There's no cost to the district. The person, our insurance covers it. If they don't have insurance, the person will have to pay. If they're a part-time staff member or somebody who doesn't have insurance, will have to pay a fee, I think $25.
Great. Thank you.
Yes.
What did you say?
Not required.
No. We're definitely not forcing anybody to get the shot, yeah.
Just putting that on the record.
16, the substitute caller. Now, this is still a thing, even though we use, and I forget the name of it. ASOP. So, is this for administering ASOP, or is this?
It's both. She administers ASOP, but also there's a lot of juggling and stuff at the end. We just don't have the staff. We just don't have the people yet in the system. It's so hard to keep steps. I guess when the economy starts getting better, she's all over the place trying to get people in. So every time we have these subs, we're trying to put them on as fast as possible.
So ASOP, so in other words, what you're saying is that when ASOP, when we put a substitute opening up, we're not necessarily getting enough people to fill it. So she's having to kind of call and call.
Try to set up coverage. We've been to the point where we've been short 10, 15 subs. In the district where now we're paying teachers preps for not having. So she juggles all that, handles all that. Plus, it all has to be done, 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning before school.
Oh, yeah, X. You were talking about Risa Callis. She's having her own X.
Yeah. This is because our other nurse retired. If you remember last year, we moved her in there temporarily, but she didn't make that list that you approved in the summer, so we had to throw it out.
Is that a correct name, or is that a misspelling?
It is.
That's K-R-N-O?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, did I say I? I meant L.
The L there, yeah. K-R-N-L.
Okay. 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 All right. There's a lot here, but is there anything else we want to talk about? Any questions? So actually, I do think maybe it's worth mentioning, for the benefit of the public, number 8, the transfer of one of our teachers to be a world language teacher for K-5. So this is going to be supporting something we have not done in the past, right? We're going to be offering language.
Yes. This program called Recess or Recess. So we'll be meeting to plan out exactly how we're going to be implementing it for K through 4, or K through 3. 4 and 5.
Right, because 4 or 5 we already have.
Correct. Yep.
Everybody all right? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mrs. Luna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Lure?
Yes, abstain 4.
Number 4?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. Okay, moving on to instruction and program. Mr. Lure, would you care to move us through these items tonight?
I would like to move items 1 through 6 as a block. We have worksheet workshops with expenses. We have the list of attached field trip requests. We have, excuse me,
Let me check out. We have the professional development on co-teaching to Valley View. We have the music therapy and social skills for preschool students at Lakeview. We have locations for community-based instruction program at Riverview and Valley View. And we have the approving the existing curriculum guides for this school year.
I'll second.
I would like to ask, why is the community-based instruction program only says Riverview and Valley View? Don't we do that in Lakeview too?
No,
We don't?
the programs we offered in are at Riverview and Valley.
Some of them with all students and some with specific programs.
Oh, and they
They're housed or.
sent to specific schools if they need those programs?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Small thing, number 6, existing is spelled if you like to provide.
Good catch, I will accept the friendly amendment.
Me too.
Just one thing to think about, and don't need an answer tonight, but maybe instruction programs talk about this in one of their future meetings, is on the workshops, I feel like I see a lot of the same names that come up, which I'm glad to see they take advantage of some of the workshops that are out there, but how can we get others to take advantage of some of those programs? Just something to throw back to IMP for future. It doesn't have to be next month or whatever, just something to think about, because when you start recognizing names of teachers you don't know, but because they're always on the workshop, I'm really glad to see they're taking advantage, but love to see new names I don't know.
It tends to be the specialists that go out because
Okay.
then they come back in turnkey, whether it's the after-school staff academies. We've been utilizing them the last couple of years, especially like these two, if they're reading specialists, in our after-school academies. So they often go out and try to come back and teach it through the teachers teaching teachers. But that is something to, always keep in mind.
One thing too, Mike, is the PD that we approve has to be toward goals.
Yep.
So often, if a goal is like improved reading, you're gonna see a lot of reading people go. So you don't see the math that year. Maybe this year now, we may be focusing on some math things, so you're gonna see maybe some less reading and more math, something like that.
Got it. Thank you.
Everybody good? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mrs. Luna?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes?
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. I need to log in on something, but I don't use that. So, all right, so we're gonna skip policy revisions, even though Mr. Anderson wanted to move those.
I was going to fight you.
The easiest job of the night. All right, let's move on to the toughest, one of the toughest jobs of the night. Mrs. DeLuna, you gotta walk us through finance, please?
Sure, Dina. I'd like to, if there's no objection, move items D on your agenda, numbers 1 through 13, as a block under finance. This includes the monthly checklists, donation of music books for Riverview Library, from a Girl Scout and former student, Piazzi, and a buddy bench from the 5th grade junior Girl Scout troop 5134, a new bike rack at Valley View from Lucas Kremen for Boy Scouts. Items 5 through 8 involve special ed placements and services. 9 is asset tags for disposal from Valley View. 10, joint transportation agreement between Mendham and Denville. 11 is providing temporary personnel for the school year.
And 12 is network support, state, the New Jersey state contract, and 13 is the contract with the Educational Services Committee for observation evaluation services.
I'll second.
I'd like to have some clarification on item 10, because I've got the transportation agreement, but aside from transporting students, I don't know why or when or any of the details about it. Is this something we discussed previously and I don't remember?
This is a joint transportation agreement that we've been having for many years with Mendon, that they transport one student on a daily basis. And it's more cost effective to pay, to join other district to transport the student than for us to transport it or to pay another entity.
Okay, so we actually send somebody to a Mendon school every day?
We do not send them to Mendon, they go to another school. Mendon
Mendon
district
provides
transport them.
transportation?
So say for example, Mendon sends 3 kids to the school, and we have 1. Instead of us sending the bus and them sending the bus, we let that pick up our kid.
And this is, I would hazard a guess, a significant saving over us contracting out for one student.
Much
So,
less.
yeah, just in case anybody's not sure, because that's a significant savings.
It's been an annual vote for 3 years, I don't know.
Thank you.
Steve, I know that we always approve the ed services for evaluations and observations, but correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't had the need to use them, or not at least to this degree, correct?
This is the same. Last year was 80, we cut down from like 150 to 80.
Okay, I knew there
We
was
did
some.
20 grand to 12
Got it.
thousand.
So they still do some, but they do significantly less than they were before.
But we didn't need to talk about that.
Okay. And do we, how can I say this nicely? Do we find those useful? In other words, are they as good as our own staff doing them?
Yeah. We only use one person now, and he's actually been with us.
Okay.
He's got a lot of
He
experience.
used to be the county superintendent. So our staff has requested, we actually tried others, and we have not had this return, but they do feel like
Okay,
he
good.
knows the data. And we tend to have him rotate between our tenured staff. Not sort of the specialists, more non-tenured.
Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, Steve, there was or Damaris, we need to make a change on that amount, correct? 1,752,000, and then a period, and a comma.
The period, not a comma. And then,
It's
and
a
then check
change,
amount,
but
in between the 2 and
changes the
0.
amount significantly.
Right under 1.
It changes the amount significantly.
Sure.
Not 1,752, but 1 million.
Sure we can't just leave it like that?
Good. And then, thank you to the administration for inviting, Pia was at the Valley View opening, correct, right?
Right.
Yeah, thank you for inviting her, it was great to meet her and,
At the Riverview Library.
sorry, her, yeah.
It was nice.
Great.
Good job.
The fact that we have, the fact that we have 3 donations here from 3 different people, 3 different groups, is, it speaks to the spirit in Denville. I don't think you said too much more than that.
3 kids, too.
3 kids, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. We've said it before, it's a tremendous community we live in. We were just voted number 9 out of 500 something, so, there's a lot of good things to say about Denville, I'll just say some of that.
Keep it quiet, everybody's gonna want to come here and build more houses.
We'll get to that later. Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna?
Yes.
Mrs. Hanson?
Are you ready?
Yes. Yes, except I abstain on check number 3415 on motion one.
That's all.
That's it, I'm giving you guys all a break tonight.
Mr. Moore?
I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to abstain on motion one altogether.
Motion number one. Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Camillo?
Yes. All right. Moving on to operations, Mr. Bass.
Two items to move under buildings and grounds. Number one is that we authorize the business administrator to encumber up to $260,000 for the town hall construction project for the 2017-2018 school year. Number two is the board approve the use of the Riverview parking lot and 2 school buses for the PAL Project Playground Food Festival that's coming up on October 1st. We also will, they will also pay for the 2 drivers.
Second.
I'll second.
I think Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lewis gave that. So what are the buses needed for then? Doesn't everything happen at Garden Field?
The parking is in our schedule.
The shuttle, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, if you don't get there before it opens, you don't get the parking in your garden.
You can park on Dina's lawn.
Yeah, that's fine.
I like that idea.
I got there early last, yeah, when I checked my time.
Notice that I say Steve's lawn.
No, heck, if you did it right, it'd be $20 before the rain still was Scott.
If you volunteer to do something there, we can find a special parking spot. And I think we still have some volunteer slots. Open.
There's gonna be more food trucks this year?
Yes.
Because I showed up early and I was, it was tough, some of those lines were long.
Yes, so my advice to all Denville residents is to buy your tickets now online, and you get it an hour early. So if you buy for only $5, so if you buy your ticket today for $5, when you show up that day, you get it in 11, everybody else who buys at the gate can't get in until 12. And then they pay 10. So we hope that everybody in Denville takes care of that.
I like that. That's a nice
That's
approach.
nice.
That's the Disney approach, opening up the park early.
Yeah. There's a match.
Very good.
Yes.
All right.
So the other item, I know Steve and I talked about this a little bit. I guess unfortunately this is part of the state process that we have to go with the lowest bidder, but I mean, I'm a little concerned that the contractor that's listed as the GC on this project is Murray Paving and Concrete. When I look up their website, they appear to do residential driveways, seal coating, and paver work. And we're gonna pay them $200,000 and some odd to do a project that doesn't involve paving, seal coating, or pavers. So, I mean,
Yeah, it's an odd setup. It's called the Middlesex Co-op. So the district can go with a contractor without going to bid. Remember, the bids came in high, and this actually came in a little lower than the bids. And this tells you exactly what you're getting. If you look at it in detail, it's pretty intense. But basically, they approved this large co-op called the Gordian Group. The Gordian Group awards general contractors who then sub out the individual work. So the Murray Paving Company is a contractor. It's kind of like when we did the last go-rounds of bathrooms, we had a flooring company do it. It's kind of odd, right? I do see what you're saying. Like, I don't know if you hire a flooring company to do your bathrooms in your house, but these people will come in, they're a flooring company, and they sub out everything but the flooring and they do it themselves. So I do understand everybody's concern. This group is used by districts all around and municipalities. As a matter of fact, this is the same group that the township uses for projects on their their own, if they're doing work like this. So yeah, I do understand your concern, but I want you to know too, this has been, we went through this with our architects. Both architects felt like this was a solid proposal, and they felt very comfortable with this. And remember when I think I may have told you guys, we were thinking about going back out to bid. Both architects said, this is a good deal, there's no reason to go out to bid. Our town engineer, our town people in Steve Ward's office all feel very comfortable with this. I feel very comfortable with it, considering any work that we've ever done with the co-op has been done well. And you'd be surprised at some of the things that like a plumber will do, walls, which you don't normally think of that, but that's what they do. Sometimes one guy does something and they sub it out, and that's basically what happens here. But it is very detailed. You see how...
Well, he's good at paperwork.
Yeah.
I just don't know if he's good at construction.
Right.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I just...
Now, part of the architect's fees, right, the architects are supervising this and signing off on the project as it goes.
The architect has to be on site supervising and relinquishes payment, meaning, you've done 25% of the job, you get 25% of
The
the
progress payment is,
Right.
but it's signed off by our architecture, by our firm.
Correct. And it's also going to have to be signed off by the town engineer, because they're involved too. So it'll be the town engineer and our architect, and our engineers too, signing off on each phase.
But doing it to code and doing it well are two different things. I mean, you can put up a wall and it could be crooked, it could be to code, but it's not done well. That's all I'm saying. I mean, it seems like we've got an architect that we're paying a fee to oversee the project, and then we're paying a general contractor to oversee somebody else. Like, we're paying like 5 bosses to do one project, and eventually down the road, there's a guy getting paid like $5, and we paid $500 for that same thing to get done. I mean, it's unfortunately the way government works. But it just is very frustrating to me because I don't have much confidence. I should say that. I'm very concerned about this company. When I went on their website, they have pictures of residential driveways like I took on my iPhone, the picture. So no confidence. Maybe these people should go back and redo their website or change their name of their company to reflect something besides for paving and contracting. When you Google them, he did a great job on my 1,000 square foot driveway.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we've got a $200,000 project for multiple offices here. I'm just concerned, but I am, if you're confident in it, Steve, and everybody else seems confident in it, I will go along with it, but I'm definitely slightly concerned.
Yeah, I am confident, especially since we went through with everybody was in the meeting at the time, and everybody felt confident.
Does anybody look them up and ask them, like, how many projects have you done like this? Is this like a guy that's like, hey, I'd love to do that project, sounds good, I'll sling my belt on and do it, or is it somebody that's done a project of this magnitude?
No, this is the guy who won the contract to do anything like this through the co-op. So Gordian oversees it all. This is the guy, anybody who's doing a contract like this through that Middlesex Regional Co-op, this is the person who does it.
So how many, do we have any idea how much he's done?
I don't know if he did, a lot. I don't know how many he did, but I know he did a lot of these kinds of projects. I don't know if it's exactly the same type of project, meaning ours is a little unique, and most of it really is HVAC. The majority of the work is HVAC, and that's all going to be subbed out to train, because that's in the contract that we have to hire train, because this building was built with train, and to keep the warranty active, we have to use train. So the majority of this work is actually HVAC. There's very minimal building, actually.
Yeah, that's the sad part, $260,000.
It's not really.
But yeah.
But you make a point. I mean, looking at their website, they show great pictures of walkways and driveways, but there's not one mention of the fact that they've done any other project.
Yeah. I think it's a general contract on their one place, but that's...
Yeah, it's a general contract, paving company, general contractor. You're right, other than that, you really have to just...
Yeah, it didn't give me much confidence when I looked at their website.
But they are, to your point, Steve, they are the guys, the company that handles all of these kinds of projects for the co-op.
Right.
So, okay.
It's a fairly large co-op. What would you think, 100 entities or more?
Oh, more.
More than 100 entities in this
Most
co-op.
of the school districts are multiple
Towns, school districts, like those regional
those regional groups that they have
Yeah.
are in there.
Yeah, it looks like out of the 200,000 in this ballpark, 65,000 is HVAC.
Yeah. Yeah, when I meant the majority, I really meant the biggest chunk.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe single.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe single.
Yes.
And that's really what the town is mostly concerned with, because this is a pretty high-tech HVAC system here. And they want to make sure the integrity is there.
Does anybody have any other thoughts or comments on this? So we're looking at a proposal that came in at 208. Obviously allocating, you said this is 15%
About that, yeah.
you know.
It's,
So
there's actually,
contingency.
yeah, there's $10,000 additional that's not going to be done by this group, that has to be done directly with the two vendors. It's actually around 9,000. The security and the fire alarms. So they have to be done directly to the vendors. And they'll be done while the project's moving along. We don't need to award that yet.
Is that why it's zeroed out?
Yes, and then last item.
Fire alarm
Is it like a-
system, zero.
Yeah, because we told them that we didn't want them to come to the
Yeah, that's what I thought. See, you and I are like, yeah, the same thing. I'm like, yeah, that's great.
Well,
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah.
It's listed on the contract, they just put zero, so.
That's because it was on the first one, we told them to do that.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts or comments on this before we vote? All right, let's do it. Roll call, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Cass?
Yes.
Mrs. DeLuna?
Yes.
Mrs. Lindsay?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Capello?
Yes. All right. We are up to bit of the bonus.
So we talked a little bit about the food truck festival, so I just wanted to highlight all the things that are going on in Project Playground between now and our next meeting.
Yeah.
How about now? So this Sunday, Project Playground is holding a fire truck pull down Broadway. They also have a touch-a truck, and they're raffling off a pedal car with a fire truck. The following Sunday is the Food Truck Festival at Gardner Field, and October 22nd, is that right? Is the 5K zombie run, 5K, which will be the same route as last year. You can find out information about it at denville.com for all of them. You'll also be getting an email from me requesting volunteers for the Food Truck Festival.
Yeah, we gotta make sure. Okay. All right, thank you.
I have two items, I guess. I will draw all the board members' attention to the email you received from Morris County School Board Association. The board of directors met over the summer, argued heartily over what topics we would bring to you all this year. And on October 19th, right around the corner from where we're sitting now, we'll have a discussion on school choice. What does it mean for your district? And the discussion will focus on charter schools and their potential effects on public schools. So if you are not on the Riverview PTA, I don't see any reason you'll have any other excuse not to show up, so RSVP and come out on Thursday, October 19th. I have one other item, but I'll give somebody else a chance. Okay, so my other item is I attended CPAC's first meeting of the school year, and it was a wonderful meeting. It was the executive board, which is a dedicated group of people, including our staff member, Grace Johnson was there. And one of the things they asked me about, and Steve, I sent you emails, but I was hoping that maybe you would also speak to tonight. One of the things they asked was about the role of the Class 3 officer in the district. And I told them, I think correctly, exactly what my understanding was, but just to sort of have it on the record. I'll let you do it, yeah.
So the role of the Class 3 officer is to be a security guard, not a SRO, not to be involved in student discipline in any way. Obviously, if he saw an assault going on, something like that, he would stop it. His role would be to stop that. And I'm saying he because we know who he's going to be. The township is about to hire somebody this week, hopefully. So I met him. I was very happy with him and his credentials. And remember, he works for the town. He doesn't work for us. He works for the police department. But I have some input into it. But he's not going to be, a teacher's going to call him in the room and say, this kid's being disrupted, pull him out. That's not the role. He's a security person, not just like a security guard, but also in charge of security. So any drill type things, any kind of procedures or processes that we have, he'll review them and make recommendations for changes. But he is not in any way really to interact with the students, other than to say hi and things like that. He's not going to be like a buddy, SRO type person. They may like him and high-five him here and there, but he's not supposed to be in the classrooms and teaching anything. He doesn't teach classes. He's a security guard. It's very specific duties. Just wanted everybody to know that.
I thank you for putting it out there so that we're on the same page. And as I said to Steve when I went back and forth with him, until I sat there at the CPAC meeting and they asked, would he be introduced to all the students, would they get to know him? I said, that's, we have, they're not there. Let me see if I can remember what they're called, lead officers that, interact with the students that way and get to have that relationship with students, but it was not my understanding, and Steve confirmed that it's not the same type of role, and they won't be, getting to know all the students and trying to learn all their names, and that they're overseeing our security at a different level.
I would think they'd say hi to the kids.
I'm quite sure that they're going to be friendly and nice, but our intention isn't to bring them in and introduce them to all the classrooms and have them get to, be familiar with them. So I will get back to CPAC on that, but I appreciate you putting it out there in case anybody else had the same misunderstanding about what they were going to be doing.
The foundation, real quick. So Foundation of Denville, which as everybody knows, or public if you don't know, is the educational nonprofit foundation that supports specifically this K-8 district. They have their single and largest fundraiser coming up next week. So actually Wednesday is the kickoff over at the second half from 7:30 till whenever they close the door. So come on by and stop and grab some food and something to drink. The golf outing is next Monday. There is two kind of pieces to that, or a couple pieces. There's noon, which is the actual start of the golf outing, and then dinner is at 6:30. So if you don't want to play golf, you're free, or they'd love to have you come just for dinner. I'm formally putting an invitation out to everybody. If you have any questions on it, shoot me an email, and you can show up that night. There's no formal seating or anything like that. You go in and just grab a seat. The dinner is $60 per person, so bring a neighbor, bring a spouse, bring a friend. During that dinner, it's not just a dinner. They have a 50-50, a turkey tray, a live auction. So they do a whole bunch of interactive stuff, and they've been working really hard on it. They're meeting tonight, actually, to finalize everything. So hopefully we'll see everybody out there. Last year, I think it was 20,000 a school or somewhere in that ballpark where they gave out grants. They changed over their grant process a little bit too, and Jeff Barnish, who's now the president of the foundation, announced at the convocation that they're doing a rolling grant process, so it's not going to be a deadline on a certain grant. I saw several staff members kind of perk up at that, so that's good to see. So hopefully as they see someone do something, it'll kind of spur some interest and they'll submit a grant for something else. But there's teacher grants, there's district-wide or school grants, so they do a whole bunch for the schools that are above and beyond what we do already, and our extra special programs that have been really successful. So hopefully if you're able to come out, we'll see as many of you as possible on next Monday night and this Wednesday if you're available.
just one correction to what Mike said is the open bar starts at 5:30.
Oh.
You don't want to miss out on that stuff at 6:30.
It's a good time.
It sure is. All right, so I went to the New Jersey School Board's Legislative Committee meeting this Saturday. It's always actually a really useful time. You learn a lot in a fairly short period of time. There's a few things I wanted to hopefully kind of download to you. We had a representative from the state, New Jersey BOE, come in and talk a little bit about the fact that the ESSA plan has been approved at the state level. This is the Every Student Succeeds Act, I believe. That's been approved at the state level. Now they're moving on to rolling that down to the districts. There is apparently an ESSA plan that we need to formulate. There's also ESSA report cards that have to be developed at the district level, and supposedly that has to be done with parent involvement, specifically by law. That's something we have to involve parent volunteers in, and it can't be us doing it as parents. It has to be parents that are outside of the district that come in and help with that process. So apparently there's a fairly good learning curve for you guys in terms of the administration to kind of understand the process and what needs to be done. Right. Yeah, we couldn't do it as being parents and board members. We wouldn't qualify to be involved.
Spouses do it?
I would think so. Spouses, I would think so. And that didn't come up, but based on what they were describing, it sounded like it would be okay. So we talked a little bit about that. We also talked about there are some revisions to the Hiv regulations, one of which is that when we have a student that is placed at an outside placement, if there's an HIV case that the parent appeals, we as the sending school board have to be involved in that appeal process. In other words, there was no way for the parent to have an appeal. So what they've done is they basically said that those parents would come back to us to have an appeal process. There was a hole, I guess, that they're trying to fill. It's not a great solution because obviously we're not in control of a lot of what happens outside. Right, exactly. So, but that was the way that they decided to solve this issue. So nobody's particularly happy about
the
it.
legislators?
Yes. So nobody's particularly happy about the way this is being resolved, but that's what's happening.
This is if an HIV case happens with someone involving someone who is
Yes,
we are sending out
outside
of district
place.
okay, so it's not, okay.
And it only comes back to us if the parents decide to appeal. Then they would come back to us. And obviously, it opens up lots of issues about our understanding of what happened and our ability to control the policies. We have a lot less control, but that's how it's going to shake out.
So actually, it's really interesting because I hadn't really thought about it. We have obviously not a significant amount of students that are out of district placements, but Steve, can you give, doesn't have to be tonight, but give us an education on how that process works? And, like, I don't even know if somebody says they're HIV at a private institution that's a town over, what happens? Our kid, yeah, our student that's out of district at a private institution because there's not a board of education for that private school. So.
Now, they did say that they are responsible for doing the investigation.
Yeah.
Right, so they have to follow all of that, but it's only for the appeal.
Appeal. But I don't know even how does it get to the appeal, like, you know, what is the process initially? Like, I know what our process is if it's an in-district student, but if it's an out-of-district student.
This actually came up today in our training. We had training by Francis from Matt's office today for all administrators. And this hasn't been finalized yet, these are proposed regulations. But according to the proposed regulations, we'll be responsible for anything that occurs on a bus. The school is required to create a policy and have a procedure in place to investigate and handle bullying going forward. In the interim, though, while it's not done, I really don't know the answer to your question, so I'll find out the rest of it. I mean, I know what's going to happen in the future, I just don't know what's going to happen, what happens now.
Yeah, it hasn't, that I can remember come across our desk, so to say, and just don't want to be surprised if it does.
Well, yeah, that brings up a good point. I mean, up until now, with this new proposed legislation, do we just not know about any cases that happen?
And that question came up, actually, at the meeting. And
Because, I mean, as you're talking about it, I'm thinking, in all my time on the board, I've really never
And the question came up,
barely
and
ever heard about it.
the answer from school boards was more than likely you did know, right? You There
We
was
just
no-
didn't know,
That's right.
or we
And that's-
didn't know.
And that's one of the reasons, I guess, this is an attempt to close a hole that they perceive.
And it's interesting because many of those facilities, if not almost all of them, are probably private and don't have the reporting requirements that we do. So we show all our reporting of HIV cases, and I'm not saying there's a lot of them that happen there. We don't know.
No, we have no
The
idea.
public probably has no idea, because I don't know if they have the same.
You know, not right now, they don't.
I don't even think their board meetings are public. So even if they talk about them at their board meetings, they wouldn't be a public thing then.
Yeah. Okay.
Last thing was kind of informational. I found this really interesting. When we talked about Chapter 78, we talked about health contributions. One of the things that came up, especially this year, is that public employees, in the state plan, you have your public employees, your policemen, your firemen, like that, and then you have your school employees, teachers, and so on. There are actually two different rates for the increases this year. Teachers are getting approximately a 13% increase in the benefits. Other public employees are getting a 0% increase. Now that sounds terrible when you first hear it and you wonder why. So they gave us a little primer on the why of that. When they implemented Chapter 78, they created two committees. They called them Plan Design Committees. One committee was for public employees that are not involved in schools, and then there's 130 public employees involved in schools. These committees are supposed to get together and try to figure out how to make the plans more efficient, make tweaks like increasing the co-pays for hospital visits or those kinds of things. In other words, try to keep the costs down. The public employees committees met a lot. They did a lot of fairly good work, and they kept the increases down to 0. The school plan design committee has never met because the union members and the non-union members can never agree on an agenda, and they have never agreed even when to sit down. So when we talk about why those increases are, it has a lot to do with the fact that this plan design committee basically didn't do their job. So,
Who is that? Was that just assigned by?
I don't know what point did that's actually a question that came up after the meeting, but nobody had a clear answer. I wanted to do a little research on that. These committees are assigned in, I know for the school member one, it was part union representatives, part others, and I'm not exactly sure what the makeup was. I don't think it was it was a governor appointed or anything. But yeah, so I don't know what the committee makeup, how that was structured. But however it's structured, it's apparently not working for the school side of things. And so that's why you see that vast difference in increases.
Well, let's hope that information gets out there broadly.
That's why we want to talk about that tonight. So,
Is there some kind of legal recourse?
I don't know about that. I mean, school boards brought this up because the legislative people for school boards are pushing very hard on this issue because obviously it impacts us very directly and it's a very big deal. So they are talking this up in Trenton. They are pushing hard to try to figure out if somebody could fix this in some way. Exactly how that's going to happen, I don't know. But school boards is advocating strongly to get this committee to do what it's supposed to do.
It's interesting that they split it out to begin with,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Right.
What inherently makes
Why couldn't it have been one plan design committee?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because the other one, it's not like they're mixing police officers and firemen and a lot of other professionals that are not under the same, I guess, profession, so to say.
My guess is, if I was to take a hazard guess, it was the NGA that wanted that.
That's too, but yeah. Interesting. Thank you.
Yep. All right, that's all I have. Okay, should we talk?
Go ahead, one more. Sorry, did you have anything?
No, I was going to move on to.
Okay, I just wanted to say congratulations to Damaris and Sandy and Steve on a great convocation. It was my first time attending it, and between Pastor Carol and and Jeff and Steve and Sandy and Scott Chesney, and just really, I thought it was well put together. Everybody seemed really excited. It was a great presentation and a great way to kick off the year. So thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. I like having it out anyway. See if we can get another year out.
That's right.
It's so hard to top it though, like what do you do? You go back, you go back.
I kind of liked having it in the church. It had a personal feel to it. If we have to go back there, that's not a bad thing, I don't think.
It was nice. It's just a little cramped.
Yeah,
And not quite large enough for
the
everybody.
people at Honeywell roll out the red carpet, it's nice, it is very nice. All right.
Which one?
I wanted to talk about the presentation a little bit. I think there might have been some comments about the presentation. Don and I had a little bit of a conversation today late. I think the only comment I would make about the presentation in its current form right now is I think we need more at the end to really kind of drive home what the impact is to us in terms of, you know, what a one-bedroom apartment means, a two-bedroom apartment, a three-bedroom apartment, what the cost of each student is. I'm not sure we're necessarily hammering that home yet in the presentation. I think we may need to flesh out that last third. Is that a fair recap, Don, of what we were saying?
Yeah, I don't know if you had a chance to see the email I sent out late afternoon. And not a school board a long time. Mariana's been around a long time. This affordable housing issue is probably the most critical thing that's gotten on our radar screen since I've been here. And this was back when I first joined the board. The schools were overcrowded. We were teeing up a middle school, and it never happened. There was a lot of community resistance, and then you had a recession and a couple of storms in town. The student population started to decrease, and we're at the point now where we're almost ready to house all the students inside the schools and get rid of the trailers. So, it's still up in the air how these numbers are going to shift in terms of what the town's obligation is. It looks like one case is more close to being finished than the others, but I'm real concerned about that, and I don't think the town council is really aware of, what the impact's going to be to the school system. A couple of bullet points I put in the email is that they should be aware that we just recently evaluated several space options and the cost of each one, and our decision to do the $1 million auction and some of the details behind that, because the affordable housing was one. We don't want to spend $10 million on doing an addition on the school and then find out it's not enough. Okay. This is great that you included some of the prior architectural studies that we did when we were looking at the middle school. So I think that should be part of the presentation. Cost estimates for school expansion, building another school, or going back to more trailers if the student demographic projections are for more students. The Cole Drive, based on my knowledge, is probably the only place you could site another school. And one of the issues that came up when we looked at that location was the busing aspect, where we have students that are in a Rockaway zip code over there on Barber Road. You have students up on Whaleback Wadi, Cook's Pond area there. That is a long ride, especially rush hour, to bus those middle school students, that wasn't middle school on the Cole Drive, from that side of town over there during the rush hour. So that's something, we haven't really looked at in a long time, but maybe when the transportation director starts looking at busing efficiency, that could be something that's looked at, that location. As we mentioned, Steve mentioned at the prior meeting, the current renovation add classroom plan does not allow for additional expansion of classrooms and more students. We might be able to squeeze a few in here and there, but right now, if we do this, the $1 million solution to get kids out of the trailers, that's going to be it in terms of capacity. There's really not room for more students. So those are things, I see the presentation as more affordable housing than strategic plan.
You think we could put together a committee of 3 people to meet with me and go over this? Because I think it's just going to be too far all over the place.
I think that's a good idea.
But which 3 people would like to do that? Or do you want to push it to a committee, a standing committee? Right?
Yeah, I'll participate.
Don, if you could, maybe the 3 of us? You 2, Don?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to open it up to someone else if you feel strongly. Might be
Anybody?
I would be interested in it,
Oh,
but
that's,
it's also not,
you can do it. I'd be happy if you did it, right? That'd be good.
And just as a little kind of update, just because I went to the last town council meeting, and just to kind of update everybody on kind of what's progressing. So let's kind of rewind. Let's go back to the 5 projects that were on the 2015 to 2025 plan. It was Esseling Village, which is already built. The next one on there was Station Road, which is the Redmond Press. So Station Road and Redmond Press, those are the exact same projects. So if you hear them, they're referred to them as the same thing. That is located on the corner of 53 and Station Road, which is right across from the food town. That was about, and don't quote me on these numbers, but about 50 townhomes, 1 and 2 bedroom, on the Mount Tabor Railroad stop there. That one has slowed down significantly due to traffic and concerns and some other things that a few town council members had. So I believe they are looking to form or have formed a subcommittee to look at it and evaluate that project. The next one on the list, and the one they presented, was the Glenmont Commons, which is Castor Line. So Glenmont and Castor Line, think about them as the same. That is, if anybody knows where the fields are, the Veterans Memorial Field is on Zeke. If you go to the end of Zeke and make a left, it is, you're almost in Parsippany. You're almost in Morris Plains. It's right on the edge there. The property literally butts up against the Glenmont Commons property that's in Parsippany. That is a ballpark of, I think, a 14-acre property. 4 acres are not buildable, steep slope coming down the hill towards the, if you know that area, towards the substation and the high-tension power lines. There are 10 acres that are buildable right against where those houses are in Parsippany. That was a proposal for 65 townhomes. Originally, we're going to be half 1-bedroom, half 2-bedroom. They shifted to about 50 or 53 3-bedroom, which, from a school perspective, was a huge change.
And can I?
Yeah, sure.
And don't forget to mention that the option for a 4th bedroom was they're building them with decks.
Well, no, that was the other one.
Oh,
that was the last
sorry.
one. So yeah. So that one, I will tell you that we had a lot of conversations with the town council, with administration, and I can tell you was up for vote one day, or I should say at least on the agenda, and was pulled off the agenda for a couple of reasons. But I can tell you that there is continued discussion between the developer and the town based a lot because of the concerns that we brought up about the 3 bedrooms. Finally, at the last town council meeting, so that has not been voted on either. At the last town council meeting, they brought up the Ram Associates / Toll Brothers / Franklin Avenue. So that's all one project. If you hear those terms used, it's all the same one. Toll Brothers is the builder. Ram Associate is the owner of the property. So they're subcontracting, or basically they've got a builder's agreement with Toll Brothers that if they get the approval from the town, Toll Brothers can build there. And it's on Franklin Avenue, right between the entrance to Morris Knolls, so Knolls Drive, and 46. So it's right on the edge of Rockaway. In fact, I think those Manor Apartments are Rockaway, and the property backs right up to the Manor Apartments. It's, and don't quote me on these numbers, but I believe it's a 40-acre property, so it's a big piece of property, and happens to be a piece of property that Mariana informed me, and I think Steve has confirmed, that was looked at for a potential site for a school in the past. So I think it's important, on a side note, to talk to the town council about, we looked at only several sites being available for schools. Now, if that one gets approved, that's another site that's off the list for, there's not a lot of property in town, guys, to build a school on, if we have to. So that property was 118 townhomes, mostly 3-bedroom. Those are, so let me rewind a second. Esseling Village is rental. Station Road was going to be rental. Glenmont Commons was going to be rental, and this was going to be for purchase. These were going to be majority 3-bedroom with the option for a 4th bedroom, because it would be a den, so they can pay that upgrade to a 4th bedroom for that room. That property does have vernal pools and some other concerns. In fact, that if you look at some of the maps, some of the stuff that Steve had found, and you put it side by side with the map that was shown, that I think is on the COA website for the town, you can actually see the vernal pools match up, and they're planning on building over some of them. I guess, I don't know, and, you know.
You're saying they were sketched and they didn't have the exact.
Yes.
I think when they get the exact, they're not going to be able to.
Yeah, it's concept, it's a 40-acre
Yes, that's the
property.
word,
My
concept.
guess is.
But it's scary when they said you upgrade to the fourth bedroom, it's still a den that you can turn into a bedroom again.
Yes, and it's going to be owned, so it's not like, you know,
So people can do whatever they want.
yes. So that one, when we looked at the demographics from it, were a huge impact on the schools. So that's not approved, that was just presented publicly. It's not on the agenda for tomorrow night, which is the next town council meeting. So that's at least an update on where they are. I will tell you that I think our message on the impact for the schools is getting through, because at least 2 of the town council members mentioned impact of school. One of them specifically mentioned the impact that 3-bedroom units have on the school district. So I'm happy to see that our message about what that means to us is getting through. At least they understand that there is an impact. Now I think it's important for us to bring the whole package in and understand, okay, if that impact happens, what does it mean? Because there was some very specific conversation and questions from the public as to why not build just affordable. So the problem with building market rate with affordable is it's a 15 to 20% affordable, meaning 80 to 85% is market rate. So your amount of units go up 5x. So there was some conversation on that, and one of the things that was brought up was, well, that might cost the town, you know, they may have to float a bond to be able to support that, or float a, you know, more or less become the lender for a builder to support building those units. And what the town, what a few members of the public had said was, well, if that's a $5 or $10 million cost, that sure is a heck a lot better than a $70 million school we're going to have to build from a taxpayer perspective. So just as a little bit of kind of background on where everything's going, and at least sitting through the meetings as much as I can, that's what I can update you on. But it was mentioned that we are going to be presenting October 3rd. So I think that's good. They know that. I've had some pretty significant dialogue with several members of the town council as well as the administration. So.
Mike, can you give me the numbers again on the Toll Brothers one?
118, and it was 118, and basically they have the option, so it could be all 3-bedroom or all 4-bedroom. They don't think many people would take the 4-bedroom, but they have no way to estimate, because you're going to decide on what it's going to be. I don't know the number of affordable. It's very interesting because the affordable in the Glenmont was much different than the Toll Brothers. Toll Brothers basically was, they all looked like townhomes. It was literally not, you know, even on some of the existing properties, for instance, the one by the post office, it is very similar, but you can tell if you really looked at it which one. On the Toll Brother ones, you won't be able to tell. There's no difference. Maybe no garage might be the only difference, but so the problem with it, the affordables have to have ADA compliance and things like that, which makes it really, really difficult to put into a townhome. Because a townhome inherently is multiple levels. So they somehow figured out a way to incorporate it, which was the problem that Toll Brothers had originally, because they originally said, here's the 5 buildings, 4 of them are going to be market rate, and the one down there is going to be affordable. And the town said, absolutely not, it has to be incorporated. Glenmont does it a little different, where they do have, I don't remember how many buildings, but let's say there's 4 buildings altogether. 3 of them are going to be market rate. 1 of them is going to be market rate and affordable mixed together. But at the end of the day, 50% or whatever is going to be market rate and 50% is going to be affordable. So I still think the town's concerned on some of the Glenmont property, because it's 10 acres and they're putting 65, where Franklin is 40 acres and they're putting 118. So the amount per acre is significantly higher on the, what they didn't tell us was the buildable acres on Franklin. But I think, I agree with Steve in getting the committee together to kind of talk about the presentation. I think one of the important things is talking about the Franklin Avenue property, the Nicole Drive property, because I know Steve's been digging, finding more information about that property. And if we had to, what that means to build a school, because I think it's a bigger project than all of us understand or really want to get involved with, but we have to do it, so. Anyway, sorry, that was a long-winded explanation.
Thank you for taking that on, and thank you for that explanation. You've become our resident development expert.
I know, it's very impressive.
It is. Okay, so time to this. Okay, I wanted to move on to how we're going to do this presentation, but
Okay, that's fine. I have one comment comment about the presentation
Okay.
since I'm not on the committee, but I can.
All right, so tied to the concept of the presentation, we talked about the, all of us wanting to be there, or a majority of us wanting to be there, and what that would mean in terms of having a public meeting. I believe, we think we have a solution.
That's something Matt was doing.
Okay, so the plan basically is to notice a public meeting for October 3rd. We will open a meeting somewhere else in this building, or a conference room, or whatever. We will come in here as a group. We'll attend the council meeting going on here. When that is over, whoever is here, it has to be at least 5 of us, we'll leave that meeting and go and close our meeting.
And the only one who can speak would be
Being the majority.
4, I'm sorry, 4. Has to be at least 4.
the only one who can speak can be the president, unless the board grants permission to someone else, because any comments at that time during a meeting would be considered something relevant to the district. Now, you can't, at a public meeting, say, I'm speaking on behalf of myself.
Sure you can.
In our public meeting.
No, but you absolutely can do that. We've done it for years. Not that anyone has anything, but you don't give up your rights as a citizen.
Yeah, but if we're having...
But it's
So
our
you
meeting.
just preface it and saying, that I'm not speaking for the board.
No, but I think he's saying if you're, because we're technically going to have a board meeting open at that period. So I think if
It's our meeting.
a
Isn't
board
it
meeting,
their meeting that you're just attending?
Yeah, but it's our
Yeah,
meeting
but
too.
our meeting is open.
We have to have
If
a-
we're gonna notice a meeting,
But
it's
what's on
already,
the agenda?
Just respect.
the presentation.
The priest, yeah.
And you're just saying, we're gonna have an open meeting and we can't talk, like, doesn't make sense.
No, you can talk, just the board has to grant permission.
No,
You can-
like right now, we're not granting each other permission to talk.
the president has opened the floor, right?
Right.
I'm just like,
All
whatever.
right, but no, to your point, we can grant everyone permission to speak. If I'm right, I mean, I think, well, first of all, let's take a step back. Is there going to be a majority of us at this meeting? A majority of us at this meeting, first of all.
What would you like, Mr. President?
Well, yes.
What would you prefer?
I cannot make it out of town for work, so I will not be there.
I had given my preference, I think, when I emailed out to everyone, that I felt like we should do 3, and I thought that was sufficient. But the feedback I got was that more than that wanted to attend. So if that's the case, then we'll go to public meeting now.
I had intentions on attending until it looked like we were having problems allowing us all
Well,
to
we
attend.
found a solution.
Yeah, that was the solution that I, thought was,
Okay, so you'd like to attend.
well, and my committee meeting is gonna butt up right against it, isn't it?
What time is the town council?
7:30.
I would like to attend as well. I think it's very important that everybody who can, work prevents you, obviously you can't, but I think everybody who can show up, and I think it's very important that we present a united face, say, hey, look, this is a big concern for us and everybody in the town.
Yeah, I mean, it directly impacts all planning we do as a group. Yeah. If I'm allowed, sure.
Same here.
I would say the same. I would think
I think Don and Mark.
Don, you both
Here we
want.
go, if that's what you want.
Okay, I mean, I think it's fine for us all to go, as long as we found a solution that Matt's happy with, Steve's happy with, doesn't get us into any kind of problems in terms of how we handle the meeting. I'm fine with it. So I would.
we have to talk about this and
We have to,
Yeah,
we can't just do this. Once I find out whatever the plan is, I'm gonna reach out to them and say, this is what we're planning on doing. We would have to get permission to use one of the other rooms. We would have to open the meeting there with the camera. We'd have to then move the meeting, put a note on the door, say we're over here. We'd have to continue the video of the meeting. It'll be a public record now because it's our meeting, so our meetings get posted on the board. I know.
No, they've
They've
given
given
us
us permission already, and they can't withhold as long as we follow the rules of how you videotape, they can't say no.
And we're only going to videotape our presentation, because then after our presentation's done, you're going to walk across the hall, assuming, and close the public portion of your meeting and stop the recording, right?
Well, I don't know, that's a question.
I don't know if it's going to say for the answer. It depends on the form of their meeting. Do they open up like we do? And ask
Typically,
questions?
after there's a presentation, they open it up to public comment, and then they'll open it up to committee or council comments in general. Now, sometimes there's a break, depending on how long the public comments are, sometimes they'll break in between. So it depends on how they decide to do it, but that's the flow of how they do it. Now, guys, remember, just like if we invited somebody to come to our meeting, it's a portion of the agenda, not the whole agenda. So just, we'll talk about it when we put the presentation together.
10-minute presentation with Q&A.
And my suggestion is Steve and Dino are the speakers for the board instead of opening it up to everybody, because they're giving us this opportunity and we're not ganging up on them. It's support by being here, that's fine, but I think we just need to be careful on how we open it up too much, that's all.
I don't want to necessarily have anybody who has an opinion not be able to answer a question or speak if it comes up. I mean, my only concern is that I'm not exactly sure what the flow of this is going to be. But if everybody's okay with Steve and I being the spokespeople for at this meeting, that's fine with me too. But I don't want anybody to feel like they're being.
Those are our bylaws.
So, but
Like,
do we want, but do
if
we
we
want
didn't
to
like
make
it,
a
we
session?
should
But do we want to
put
make
our
a
bylaws
session?
on the policy section and
You have our vote, Dee.
Okay. All right.
Now, what I would
It's
also,
not a joint meeting, that's different. A joint meeting would be that we're both doing it cooperative. We're really coming here
yes.
to be witnesses of it and make a presentation.
But
It's a little different.
if it follows the format like the last meeting, and Mike has attended many of them, the Toll Brothers sat up here, did their presentation, and the town council allowed the community to ask them questions directly on their presentation. So I would assume they would give you the same courtesy that they did the Toll Brothers on their presentation. So you'll be seated up here, make your presentation with your,
When we do the budget one, that's how it works.
Right.
They ask them questions.
So,
And Mariana brings up a really good point, because I'm guessing they'll do the same thing, and that will open up to questions from the community. And I think we need to think about what questions those are going to be, because I would suspect that you will get a good crowd at this meeting. That is my guess.
and it, not this last meeting that I came in halfway through and attended with Mike, but the one where a few of us came to listen. People have a lot of questions, and questions regarding the schools, so I think in the long run, it'll be good for us to be in the same place at the same time, for the community to see that we are having conversations.
Can we do two things? Can the committee maybe consider a little bit what those questions might be? You guys, while you're thinking about the presentation, let's talk about what we think, what we maybe call the answer. The other thing is, can we come on this and can we that we're doing this presentation?
Sure.
Like folders and all of that, Twitter and that effect, right? I don't see any reason not.
So my only request, since I'm not on this committee that's going to discuss the presentation, is you have a district-wide enrollment history and projection. If you stand true to form, we normally put all our presentations on the website afterward. I would ask you to put some kind of asterisk at the bottom. This is, I'm assuming this was the projection given to us before there was any building going on in town. So I don't want anybody later to look at this and go, why would you need a new school? Your numbers are way below where you were in 2012.
Maybe we title it even very clearly as possible.
Yes, very clearly, because I know that you go on later to talk about the projections of whatever, but somebody who's not here for the presentation that opens this up online could say, it's crazy. I can see why they might have thought they needed a new school in 2012, but not now.
And along the lines of questions, Steve, would you mind reaching out to the administration and just query them ahead of time if they've got any questions they know of now, so that we're prepared for them?
Sure. So this is what we're going to do, right? So I'm going to reach out to the town and tell them what we'd like to have permission to do. Just so we said, we're all good with that. And then the mayor's going to notify the meeting, right? The notice the meeting once we confirm to town, and then we'll move on.
All right, very good. All right, can we put in your calendars?
I had one other thing. I provided everybody with this budget and documents from the EI on our projects that we've been discussing. One thing I'd like to mention is that
one of the projects, the family consumer science room at Valley View, we're gonna try, and I'm not sure we can do it yet, but we're gonna look into trying to do that project for a lot less, meaning in-house with our people, not as extensive, meaning not a total renovation where you're tearing it down to nothing, starting over, but trying to do something to spruce it up for, say, instead of $283,000, $83,000. One of the things we'd like to do with the extra money is take the money that we would save from that project, the $200,000, combine it with another $120,000, and look at doing new HVAC with air conditioning in the Valley View gym. So that's on the horizon right now, we've been talking about. One of the problems with the HVAC in the gym is it's not turning the air over, it's an old unit. We could just do that for about $200,000, but for about $320,000, we could put air conditioning and new HVAC. So it's just something we're still talking about. I wanted to get it out there so everybody knew it. Also, our architect recommended that I add some money to this budget. If you notice, the budget that I talked to you guys about at the committee meeting is up a little bit, and that's because of the 2 hurricanes. He says that he expects the building costs next summer to be a little bit increased due to the shortage. There'll be a shortage of materials and labor because there's going to be so much rebuilding going on in Texas and even some of the islands, the American islands in Florida. So he said that we should anticipate a little bit of an increase. So I did add some of the money to that. That's it for that.
All right, anybody, anything else? All right, if not, we'll open up one more time for public comment at 9:44 p.m. Still good? Okay. All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public portion at 9:44 p.m. We do have need for a short executive session. We are not going to be voting after when we come out.
This is stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Mrs. Wagner, would you move us into executive for negotiation?
Sure. I move to convene an executive session in accordance with Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this closed session will be to discuss negotiation issues. Minutes of the session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes. One abstention. All right, we are in executive session at 9:45 p.m. Thank you.
Rick, would you shut down?